Hello, everyone from the Jam Yearbook. I'm Jim.
And I'm Matt. We're here to take you on a journey through the years as we explore the music in our lifetime and the impact it's had on us and the
Yeah,
world.
welcome to the show. So, Matt, we've covered another 10 years. We've finished another decade of music.
The show is almost old enough to drink.
Needs one more year. The gloves came off, though. So, what's funny is I talk about how people like it when we argue with each other, but that didn't really happen too much during this decade. It might happen a little bit more going forward as we get into some further years.
Yeah, I expected a little bit more resistance.
Yeah, but I
rant.
think what really happened was we kind of came to a realization about the music industry in general during this 10-year period. And I think we found ourselves needing to stop and to be a little more honest with ourselves with what we've been trying to achieve and experience personally with the show. So, to let the title of this episode seem deceiving, and we'll get to what we forgot, but let's start a little bit here with what we've learned or what the experience of the past episodes has been like for us. So throughout the past decade that we've covered, we couldn't help but notice that there was a similarity in sound. That was pretty obvious to us. We brought Harry and Mercedes onto the show to help us confirm what we noticed. I guess we needed some young, fresh ears to let us know that the old guys were right. But everything was sounding the same to us, especially for the last 20 years, whenever we were hitting anything in the 2000s.
Not to say we told you so.
I think you've been saying it more than me. And, I'm the pop guy. So I was just generally trying to get along and nod my head to everything. But then I realized, wait a minute, shit, he's right. But as we were getting ready for the show this week, we stumbled upon what might be a reason as to why this is a very feasible theory. Many of the chart-topping songs the past 2 decades have been written, co-written, or produced by only a handful of people. And 2 guys shine brightly at the top of this list, or dull, if you actually listen to the music. So, Matt, why don't you start us off by explaining the music and the impact of Max Martin?
We don't have enough time to go into the whole thing, but hopefully we kind of just touch on a few things where maybe somebody else will get interested and kind of dive in and read about it themselves. So Max Martin, he's written or co-written 25 number one songs. And those are just the number ones, right? And this is all based on Billboard's Hot 100. He's in 3rd place behind Paul McCartney and John Lennon for the most number one singles.
Nobody knows who he is.
I think that's a little bit by design too. He seems to be a little bit on the private side, which is, I respect that. That's cool. As of 2021, he has had 23 number one songs as a producer, and that tied him with the George Martin.
So basically him and the Beatles.
Right? So who are the singers of these number one songs? Starting in 1998. So we got Britney Spears, NSYNC, Katy Perry with 8 songs. I think she was leading the way. Pink, Kelly Clarkson, Maroon 5, Taylor Swift, The Weeknd, Justin Timberlake, Coldplay. And those 25, 6 of them debuted at number one. And those are just the number ones. Again, just the number ones. The last number one was in 2021 that I could find. He could have had one this year that I didn't see anywhere. Between 1998 and 2018, he has won the ASCAP Songwriter of the Year Award 11 times, including a streak of winning it every year from 2011 to 2018. He's won, surprisingly though, he's only won 6 Grammys out of 21 nominations.
Okay.
But don't worry, he was helping out before 1998. He was working with a producer called Dennis Pop.
Mm-hmm.
But he was involved with the Backstreet Boys and Ace of Base.
All right.
Helping those groups release those albums that were hits. The list of people he has written, co-written, produced, and co-produced it's long. Ariana Grande, Bon Jovi, Bryan Adams, Celine Dion, Daughtry, Avril Lavigne. I could go on and on and on. It's really quite amazing to just go through all of his credits and see the names of people he's attached to for all this. It's amazing, but for me, it's sad that that's where it is. But it doesn't stop with Max Martin. When I was looking up those albums, there are multiple producers attributed to them. And a few names kept popping up. Dr. Luke, Belbach, and Savan Kotecha, just to name a few. They frequently collaborate together. This group has pulled off this amazing run of success with One Direction, Kesha, Flo Rida, Rihanna, Pitbull, Miley Cyrus, Adam Lambert, Carrie Underwood, Muse, Lizzo. See, I could keep going on and on and
It
on.
sounds like a name checking episode.
Oh my God, it's amazing and sad, right?
Yeah.
So Lizzo, she went to on her earlier albums, like being the main songwriter on her stuff. So all of a sudden her album Special comes out. Now there's literally 25 producers credited on the album.
Wow.
And sometimes double-digit people writing the songs. And to me, that's just not art. That's a science project.
Mm-hmm.
That's a business. That's where I come at, like, that's sad to me.
Yeah.
Just go to Spotify and search Max Martin and find playlists of his songs on Spotify. You'll be like, oh, know it. That's a hit. That's a hit. I braved my sanity and did just that. And the other part that's sad is in doing that, I'm noticing throughout these songs, I'm picking out, oh, this borrows from this. This song borrows from that. And it could just be because I want to find that. And I'm not here accusing of plagiarism or anything, but it seems like it borrows just enough to not get, noticed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everybody's got an influence, but some people mask it better, or and some are a little bit more open in their homage, they'll call it.
So are we discovering that we really have been hearing the same shit over and over again? It's contrived, it's intentional. I guess for me, the big question is it master songwriting or is it psychological manipulation? When I went down my wiki search, I kind of found out there was a science to what was behind a lot of this songwriting. And it's not uncommon for Max Martin or his team to have tried to figure out how to tap the human psychosis to sell music. I read the full analysis of Katy Perry's Teenage Dream, and it hurt my head. I think I'm just learning that pop is basically programmed for people to like it. Intentional syncopation and singing on top or delaying the beat in certain ways. It's a science to trick the mind without any feeling. And even chords and notes get intentionally laid over at the start to never return, because the listener will keep listening to the song to hear it again, but it's not going to show back up. Yeah. Holy shit.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I started understanding why people like soccer so much, or football for the UK listeners, because it's like that. It's almost a goal. It's almost a goal. It's almost a goal. Oh no. There's always like that promise. Oh, it's coming, but there's no like payoff sometimes.
Like attention and release.
Yeah. But there's no release.
No,
because it's always teasing that.
Yeah, it just leaves you there waiting.
But you're a better man than me for making it. I tried to read that and I tapped out after a paragraph. I'm like, no, because this is just going to piss me off. I'm not going to, my intention wasn't to come on this episode and just be Mr. Ranty again.
No. And it doesn't stop with Max Martin. No. You said there's a whole bunch of other producers and people that he's worked with out there. There's also Ryan Tedder. He's another prolific songwriter of the past 2 decades. His pinnacle is probably Beyonce's Halo, huge song, but he's written songs for most of the artists you've already mentioned, along with a diverse sound that spreads from Chris Cornell to Earth, Wind and Fire. and he did pretty well for himself because his band is One Republic and they had the huge song Counting Stars.
Yeah, but I don't know if there's like the same sameness, from artist to artist, song to song that you get with Max Martin. So even beyond what we want to call the manipulation, I mean, others won't see it that way. Where does this manipulation start? Because it's like somebody has to be complicit for all of these to be hits.
Yeah, well, I think,
right?
Yeah.
Or as far as getting airplay, streams, right? There's got to be others who want this to happen.
Oh,
right? Because I think they can plan for it.
Yeah, absolutely. A perfect example of this is Rivers Cuomo from Weezer, one of our favorite bands. And I'm probably going to break Mercedes' poor heart by bringing this
sorry,
up.
Mercedes.
But he's long used algorithms to optimize his songwriting. If you look up Rivers Cuomo in spreadsheets, he has a lot of spreadsheets and songs. It's something that he uses when he writes his albums. but he funnels a lot of his creativity through computer programs like the programming language Python. He's known to carefully dismantle a hit song, examine each element to find out exactly what works, and then he applies that knowledge to his own writing process. I guess
he can't just use a rhyming dictionary.
Where's the thesaurus when you need one?
Jesus Christ.
Is this smart, or is it just desperation to stay on top because you can't produce it naturally anymore?
Oh, yeah. You know, if these people have figured out a way to tap into something that people can't let go of, they're geniuses, aren't they? Evil geniuses, maybe, but geniuses nonetheless. Desperate, probably. This is where I call it sad, because if creating music has become a job, like, oh, it's what I do, and it isn't filling a void in you somehow. And I know I'm romanticizing this, you know, being a musician, but to me, it's like the joy of the art should be the first driving factor. And I would like to think that at least starting out making music, it's an expression of your true self, your thoughts, feelings, desires, all that bullshit, right?
Yeah.
But maybe after you've said everything you need to say, you know, after your first 3 albums, all you have left is a void and you need to fill it back up somehow.
Then do you think that this is just completely removing feelings from music?
Do you need me to answer that? Fucking yes. A loud yes. If I want music for my head, I'll listen to prog. Believe it or not, music, I said it, music is art. Yeah. There should be a balance between the head and the heart with it. For me, that's the best way to put it. Great music. I can feel it in my soul. And I'm not trying to get in a religious sense. It's just that it's that point where my head and my heart meet, and you know it when a song blows you away. Yeah, we had pop like Human League growing up that I liked for what it was. You know, it was catchy pop, but never did I hear a song by them and have a moment.
Yeah.
And not that every song has to give me a moment, but as long as I know they can give me one, that pop music we ranted about, it is a science experiment, like I said before. I mean, but it's just taken over, and to me, it's shown itself to be a massive manipulation, because not only are they writing it, somehow, some way, that is the main music that is being pushed.
Yeah. I think one of the other things to talk about really is if that singer, songwriter, band are actually creating the music themselves. I mean, this goes way back. We know that the original rock and roll music was stolen from the early African-American jazz, rhythm and blues, that bands like Led Zeppelin came along and they had to settle out of court on the Lemon song being so close to Howlin' Wolf's Killing Floor. And they were in a lawsuit over Stairway to Heaven. Now they won that, but this was a band that heard ideas and had a intention of doing something to be popular with this music and to be big. And so I think that as time has progressed, these songwriters that have evolved through the years have found this kind of formula to just prop up singers in front of us. And I think, you know, when we were growing up, we had authentic singers, and we could go back and we could talk about Elvis, and we could talk about Tom Jones, and we could talk about Aretha Franklin. You said in episode 1971, when Aretha Franklin sings "You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman," she makes it her song.
Exactly.
But I don't think we're hearing that from these songwriters now.
No, not, you know, and if a singer isn't writing their own music, all they are to me, just that. They're just a singer. They're a puppet. And there's nothing wrong with being a singer. Plenty of people can sing. I love to sing, and I would lose my mind if I couldn't anymore. But it's the puppet part. It's a willingness to play that part just to be famous. Yeah. Because anybody can go sing in the shower or go sing at a local bar and feel fulfilled by that, just by the act of singing. But when the balance is tipped more towards wanting to be famous and all that, the trappings that come with that, instead of creating art, there's no more soul.
No, you're right.
And this whole thing, it's not about hating on Max Martin. It's amazing what he's been able to accomplish. The amount of hits he has produced, it's extraordinary, but I still feel like, you know, we haven't hit like the root of where this manipulation is starting. But so I come away with this with a kind of a respect. Producers like him, essentially, they become part of the band. He's not just hitting record in a booth. He's writing the songs and putting everything and everyone in place to get the job done. And you can't minimize a producer's role in creating music, and he has obviously a drive and a work ethic and obviously talent that's making him this successful.
Yeah. In all respect to him, let me ask you though, do you think these songs would have been smash hits if he was the one out there performing them and not Katy Perry and Pink and Taylor Swift?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure he liked a girl when he kissed
Oh,
one.
yeah, probably. So I understand why he would make himself available to these singers. To be honest with you, it kind of reminds me of what Brian Wilson did with the Beach Boys. He didn't really go out and perform with them live because he had issues with that. And he stayed in the studio and he put a lot of musicians together to create this sound, and then had the other singers of the Beach Boys come in and perform on the albums. Now, he was part of it though as well. He sang on the albums with them, but it does kind of, with the way you refer to him as being part of a band, it's like he's part of Taylor's band, and then he's part of Pink's band, and then he's part of Katie's band. And
that's why they all sound
better. And I think there is a collaboration of minds when they get together that is a little bit of the musical art that you're talking about. I'm sure some of these artists have general ideas of songs they want to write, but he probably comes in like a song doctor and helps it go in the right direction. And he probably does help the singers express themselves a little bit. So What by Pink is written about her separation from her husband. So I'm sure that was something that she intentionally wanted to write.
But maybe she needed help to get the whole thing out.
He probably knows how the verse, chorus, verse, breakdown, beat, everything needs to go to sell 1 million copies.
Yep. But there's no denying Pink's talent in being able to sell that song.
Yeah.
Right.
So we seem to talk in circles. Fuck this guy, but he's actually kind of cool.
Respect this guy. Fuck this guy. Respect this guy. Fuck this guy. In some of the interviews I listened to, he comes off as extremely likable and not the arrogant asshole I want him to come off as. So my hatred and trip to the dark side can be complete. And I'm not being sarcastic, but okay, we need to move on from this topic because it's going to be rant part 4 or 5 or whatever we're on to now.
No, I think that settles the past decade of the shows that we've covered in the 2000s. And I think it helps us move on in the show because we're going to come across more years and we're going to come across more Max Martin, and we'll probably have to
we can just say Max Martin.
And we can. There you go, everybody. Now you know.
Just move on. The more you know.
Yes. So let's talk about things we might have missed in the past 2 decades. I've got 2 albums I've always liked that I know I completely ignored. I'd like to take note that I have not yet added a song from The Cure and only one David Bowie song at this point.
Have we not just hit the right year for The Cure yet?
Not yet. I could find editions from the late 70s and during the 80s, but they haven't popped up for me yet. When we get there, I promise I'll go easy on you.
I'll bring it on. All right. Let's go.
Well, with regards to Bowie, though, I definitely contemplated 2 songs that I would have put in my 5. One was Young Americans for our 1975 show, but I have referenced that song a couple of times from his death in 2016, where he says you live for just these 20 years and then you die for 50 more. And Little Wonder from the 1997 show that was off the Earthlings album. I know you talked about how you didn't really care for the style of Bowie and what you'd seen with 9 Inch Nails during this era, but this album got a lot of play in my Bennington apartment, and particularly this song. It was on repeat a few times after it played.
Same here. I hit repeat quite a bit, but was your reasoning the same as mine? Because every time I hit repeat, I'm like, what am I missing? What the hell am I listening to? It sounds like an unfinished demo to me. So what was it? And part of it, I wonder if it's because, it's Bowie, it's Bowie. It's the Beatles. It's Elvis. They're all kind of on that pedestal. So you almost like, sometimes, I'm not saying you were, but sometimes you almost like talk yourself into having to like something because it's a certain artist or whatever.
I don't think you're too far away from that. And when I go back and look at the album now, I really only remember that song. So even though we had the CD, that definitely was the song that drew us to go back to the album, but it was,
No, but again, this is probably a tired narrative of me saying he's a chameleon, but I didn't see him as being original on this album whatsoever. I took it as piggybacking on the sound developed by like Chemical Brothers, Prodigy, a little sprinkling of Nine Inch Nails. And I know that's a broad opinion based on my ignorance of an entire Bowie catalog or the Prodigy or the Chemical Brothers, but this is such a 90s album. And I remember hearing Prodigy and the Chemical Brothers on the radio around the same time as this album. And I'm like, oh, okay, he's just a painter painting with the sign of the times. To me, it was just rave music.
Do you think maybe this was his last attempt to really connect to young people then? Because once we get beyond this era of Bowie, it just goes back to being like absolute beginners, kind of weird and awkward and strange progressions when you listen to him really beyond the 90s.
It could be because he straight up worked with Trent Reznor, right? So, and I think he was smart enough to go and see, hey, what's hot? Let me pick this guy's brain.
Try to tap into it.
Because why don't you want to try to tap into it? But then when it just kind of starts to sound derivative of that, you're David fucking Bowie. You're better than that. Right? I didn't hate it at the time, but I was just really confused by it. I was really excited for that show, but even Nine Inch Nails didn't do it for me. And I think it was because of the venue. It was outside. It was during the day. So, there's distractions. And I think both of those acts, you need to have this overall atmosphere. And outside in the daytime, you're not getting that atmosphere.
No.
So really, most of the show, me and Mark, we sat on the bleachers almost as far away from the stage as we could and just kind of talking. And it was almost like it was on the radio. And that was pretty much when I kind of walked away from Nine Inch Nails at that point too.
Yeah, I can see how it had that impact.
But I will say that when you were talking about him after this album, maybe going back to more, different stuff, I will stand by that. Black Star is an incredible album. And I think, again, probably my lack of knowledge of his music, that's like one of his most original works.
Yeah, it is. It's fantastic.
And I really love that album. That's a fantastic record.
Yep. I recommend people to go check it out. It's
definitely.
So away from that, I said there were two albums. The second one, I brought up that I completely forgotten to talk about the Red Hot Chili Peppers Californication in our 1999 episode. When I was first prepping for 1999, I was actually trying to decide which song was going to be in my 5 off this album. And then I got caught up researching Woodstock 99, all the stuff on TRL and the Disney Kids. And I think all that negativity pulled my attention away. This was John Frusciante's first return to the band, and it had a mixed reception, not amongst the critics. I apologize for that thought because I know I gave you that impression, but I would say amongst Chili Peppers fans. It was definitely, a big album. It was well received as far as sales and radio and play. I think when they toured, they still play 3 or 4 songs off this album every single night.
Yeah. It was a huge success.
Yeah, I liked it. The first 4 out of the 5 songs on the album are really well known. And for me, it was a comeback in great fashion. I covered Other Side with a band, and playing that bass breakdown in the middle of the song was just awesome. It was so much fun to play on bass.
Yeah, to me, this album, I think it was the last nail in the coffin for me in the Chili Peppers, and only because of exposure. I liked it when I first heard it, but it was just inescapable. It just, every radio station that you tuned to, boom, it was there.
It was on there. Again and again.
It was there. I was looking forward to it because John Frusciante was coming back, and I like Dave Navarro, but One Hot Minute was not good.
Well, we'll talk about that when we get to 1995.
Yeah, that was not good. But there was a lot of anticipation with John coming back to the band.
We can't argue about the sound of the next album that I'm going to talk about, and that is Paul Simon's. Did I say I had 2 albums I was going to talk about, and now I've got 3? So, so hey, I can't count. Paul Simon's still crazy after all these years.
How many beers have you had? 5?
No, yeah. If I'm counting wrong.
Yeah.
It's such a great album. The title track is really cool as it is, but 50 Ways to Leave a Lover is to me a quintessential classic song. Steve Gadd's iconic shuffle drum riff at the start leads into a really fantastic run of changing guitar chords. Go pick up a guitar and try to learn how to play this and go through the chords. Yeah. It's really cool.
It only sounds nice and easy.
Exactly. In my opinion, it's a 70s masterpiece. And I'll back that statement up, but with the fact that it's Paul Simon's only number one solo song. I'm not adding it to
Yeah, that's amazing.
I'm not adding it to my 5 this week, but I should have when we did the episode.
I almost brought him up when we did version 1988 because Negotiations and Love Songs, that greatest hits compilation was out. Yep. And I was going to ask you if that was the album that you tried to school the camp kids with.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Me and Julio down by the schoolyard. Yeah. So I'll bring in a group that we haven't talked much about is the Police.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and we had more fun kind of poking that pretentious stick at Sting because he fell out of that tree and hit everyone on the way to the ground, I think. But, you know, but we've had 2 years where we've missed talking about them in 1980 with Zenyatta Mondatta and 1981's Ghost in the Machine. They had, I mean, undeniable string of hits from those albums. Yeah. Well, 1.5 are great. Depends on where you start at the Police. Why do you think we haven't talked much about them?
I don't know. I've always been a big fan of the Police, and those are great albums, even if one of the names now sounds to me like Spider-Man's girlfriend. But I wanted to actually see them on the reunion tour they did like 10 to 15 years ago. They're all great musicians, and you'd think as a former frontman bass player, I would just gush a little more over Sting. And I shouldn't have joined you in shitting on 10 Sumner's Tales. I loved Shape of My Heart, and that's on my big playlist. It's one of my favorite songs.
Yeah, and if I did shit on that album, I shouldn't have, because that is a good album.
I think,
and I played that one a lot.
I think it was just the era that it fell in when we were going back and looking that gave us that thought. But I think
maybe I had enough.
But I think I see him struggle trying to get along with other seemingly cool musicians so much that I'm not drawn to him personally. You got to like somebody sometimes if you're going to like their music too.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you can like assholes, but it depends on how big of assholes they are. And then it does change your perception. He wants to know every little sound he's going to hear back in his songs. And Stuart Copeland likes to play with an artistic freedom on stage. And if he has an idea in the middle of a performance, he'll go for it. And you'll see live performances where Sting is yelling at Stuart Copeland on stage.
What the fuck, dude?
Because Stuart Copeland's just doing his thing and he yells back at him. But they're both such integral parts of that band and that sound of the Police that you couldn't have the Police without either one of them.
And there could be a little bit of fatigue with them, but if they come on the radio, if I'm listening or my phone, I never turn it off. I think I like some of the non-single stuff more because of that lack of fatigue. Canary in a Coal Mine, Voices Inside My Head, Man in a Suitcase. And there are points on Ghost in the Machine where I hear where Sting's solo career will go. I'm not a huge fan of that entire album, but maybe when we get to the albums in 78, 79, especially 83, I'll be more in a Police mood. But that being said, I think my favorite add to the playlist from the polls since our last cleanup is Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic.
Yeah.
Because we do need a Police song on.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's the Police. They're awesome.
Oh, trust me. With more years to come, like you just said, I definitely can think of a couple more that I still may add. And I have one definitive song that I know I'm going to bring to the playlist at some point. So,
or maybe the next cleanup episode, it's all Police. Who knows?
No.
My 5 is all Police.
But also,
it'll be Masako Tango.
I love to talk about CBGBs, and the Police. There's another band that had their first gig in the States at CBGBs.
Oh, I
did. Yeah. Watch the movie CBGB. It's at the very end of it, the very last 30 seconds. Sorry, everybody, but it's not like it's a cliffhanger. After they've gone, after they've gone through the Ramones and Blondie and everybody, Iggy Pop and everybody else who's performed there, when they realize they're going to keep going, Hilly comes out. He sits in a chair and he's like, "All right, who's next?" And a guy up on stage goes, "Hi, I'm Sting, and we're the Police." And they kick into Roxanne. So,
cool.
Yeah. So
I got to find where I got to see where I can find that stream.
I think you'd really like it. And there's a great performance from the now late Taylor Hawkins as Iggy Pop in that film that is great. So I recommend it. So I can't walk away from, talking about 1975 without mentioning the album Before the Next Teardrop Falls by Freddie Fender. And this is by no means trying to raise any negative connotations from my father, because this is a loving, great memory. But it's one of those ones that just stays sweetly with me. I've talked through the show, Matt, my father passed away just as we were starting to get this show together. So I've talked a few times about that during it. When I was growing up as a kid in the 70s, and I'd come home from Sunday service with my mom, my dad didn't go. He worked hard all week and he enjoyed his Sundays off. Most of the time when we got home, he was well into a 12-pack and singing along to country music. And this is where I get a lot of my country music background from. He was happy. He was having a good time. And to this day, if I hear Freddie Fender or even think about his music, I can smell my dad's Sunday afternoon beer breath. It's a sweet memory for me. And it was nice to go back to 1975 and to think about some of his songs. Once I had a secret love. It's just, he has such a unique vocal. And he's another one of those artists from the 1970s. And you think this is classified as country, and it doesn't feel like twangy country. It's got its own sound, its own unique sound.
Mm-hmm. So did you ever listen to Texas Tornadoes?
I didn't.
In the 90s, it was a group that Freddie Fender was in. I didn't really recognize any of the other names that were in the group, but they did a version of Wasted Days and Wasted Nights that's on that same Freddie Fender album that you were talking about.
Wasted nights. Sunday afternoon.
So go to YouTube, and there are Austin City Limits clips out there and doing Before the Next Teardrop Falls.
Oh, nice. I'll
with Freddie Fender and all his glory singing that song.
I gotta see that.
I love it.
Well, you mentioned your favorite from the show that the audience had chosen from the polls. And before we go, I will give a special shout out to Harry Beatty for his guest choice of Unsainted by Slipknot. No offense to Mark or Mercedes, their choices were all good too, but I think we were just a little taken back when we wound up with a Slipknot song on the playlist because we weren't expecting it. But
no, when I weren't expecting to like it.
Yeah, when I went and listened to it, I was actually like, holy shit, this is actually kind of cool. And I had an appreciation for them. But my real choice for the song that I would pick as my favorite from the audience poll is Rick Springfield's Jesse's Girl from 1981. Chris Hardy added this to the list, and it wasn't one of the 10 we posted that week. So it's really cool that he put that on the list. It's super cool. The progression's a lot of fun. But when I was checking out songs from 1981, this really came close to being in my 5. So I hate it when I'm thinking, oh, am I going to put this in my 5? I'm going to put this in my 5. And then I forget to put it in the poll. So thank you, Chris.
Forgot? Yeah. Because I remember you were talking about it multiple times.
I
but then I didn't
you.
see it. Yeah, I know. Yeah. But then I didn't see it. And I'm like, oh, he changed his mind. I'm like, well, that's too bad because that's a good song. My 5 is set. I'm not putting it on, but because that is a good song.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Chris, for making sure that we wound up with that on the playlist.
Guys.
So that's great. So yeah, that's, I guess, the decade in review for me. You feeling good about that?
Oh yeah, definitely.
We spent the first 15 minutes ranting on Max Martin, but then deciding we kind of love him and hate him at the same time.
Yeah. And we said when we were first doing this, we're like, oh, that's perfect for this cleanup episode. Right. But then I said, but let's just go 10 minutes because anything more, it's going to be a rant and it may not go over so well, or we may get carried away, but here we are. Probably half the episode is ranting about that.
Look, Max Martin and your lawyers, we actually think what you do is pretty interesting and cool. And
yes.
Yeah. And you know what? If I could pop in and out of everybody's band and just write a song for them or be a song doctor, and I was good at it,
I would love that job.
Yeah, that'd be a great opportunity. So
that's why we're on that Ferris wheel of respect and respect. Stop it.
Yes. We're slightly jealous, possibly.
Yes.
But maybe,
exactly. Probably a little bit of jealousy.
All right, let's get on to our 5 then.
Yay.
And here we are with our 5. So it's the cleanup show. But before we get started, we're going to let people know that we are not confining ourselves to just the previous decade of picking songs. We decided that in doing this show, we do come across songs like I mentioned, Jesse's Girl. We forget what we picked. We forget what we looked at. And then as we're digging back through notes or we're looking back through chats, we realize, oh shit, I really meant to bring this song on. and so the new rule today is that we can go back to the previous 2 decades that we've covered and pick any song from any of those years.
Why?
So,
because we said so.
That's right. Because we make the rules.
That's exactly it.
But also because these songs are fucking awesome and they deserve to be.
That's
here.
right. We love it.
Absolutely. So I went first the last time.
Yes.
It's your turn to go first for the cleanup episode. What are you taking?
I am going to go all the way back to our first show for 1971.
Really?
With Harry Nilsson and Gotta Get Up.
Yeah.
I had 2 chances to add this damn song and I screwed up both times.
And you mentioned it more than once. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not taking a third strike. Once I found Me and My Arrow when we did 1971 from Harry Nilsson, I stopped looking at his music. But if I had seen this one, kept digging in more, this would have been a no-brainer. Mm-hmm. I was hoping it was going to make the cut when it was on the poll, but it didn't. It's just a playful song. I love the cadence of the lyrics. Mm-hmm. Gotta get up, gotta get out, gotta get on before the sun comes up. And it just keeps going like that. And it kind of builds up. It's almost like there's no break in it. So it kind of builds up this little bit of a tension. It's like, man, are you going to breathe? What's going on here?
Nilsson was great at writing fun and catchy songs in the 70s. He had a great sense of optimism that was contagious here in this song. And it was fun to listen to again this week. Like I said, you mentioned it before in previous episodes. And when I thought about it being in this episode, it's a no-brainer for you, Matt. Yeah. Great choice. Great choice.
All right. What's your number one?
My number one. Well, it's funny. I don't really know when this song came out or what year it was recorded. It's a band called Laszlo Bane, and it is a cover of Men at Work's Overkill. So the only way you can find it is it's on a compilation of covers that was released in 2020, which we haven't covered yet.
No, but it's kind of like my Shadowy Men on a Shadowy Planet last week.
Well, I'm going to use 1997 as my excuse for this one. I talk about how I used to hang out at the Record Rack in Bennington quite a bit. And I stopped in there almost every day. I definitely hung out there on the weekends. Jim and Debbie, who worked there, I go in and, hey, we got this promo CD if you want it. It was just usually stuff they didn't want. But they gave me a Laszlo Bane promo CD one afternoon, and lo and behold, this song was on it. I had Men at Work. I had Cargo. So I recognized it straight away as soon as it started playing. And I think this is one of those songs that's better than your average cover, because the original Men at Work vocalist, Colin Hay, comes in and sings the final verse. And it's fun to listen to because once you hear that the first time you're like, holy shit, that's Colin Hay. He's actually on the song. It justifies the band even playing it. But then when you go back and listen to it on repeat, you almost have an anticipation of, I can't wait till Colin comes in. I can't wait till he comes in. This is going to be great. And it's just a fun song. So I highly recommend it. And check out that album of covers from 2020 as well. Laszlo Bane, good band. I'm surprised they actually didn't break or get bigger than they did, but I'm going to look forward to hearing this on the playlist. So that's
I was so happy. I was so happy you put this on. You sent me the link. I had never heard it before. And I'm like, wait a second. Is that Overkill? Fucking yeah, that's Overkill. And then exactly what you said. As soon as Colin Hay comes on, you get this next little surge like, yeah, Colin Hay. But then every other listen, you are waiting for Colin Hay to come in.
Cool. My number one. Let's see where you go with your choice for number two.
I am going to go with, I'm looking through my list and I should just put them in an order that I want to go instead of having to think about it on the fly. But I'm going to go with Greg Camp and Zombies on Parade from 2008. This is one of the ones, all these ones we missed to add. But this wasn't even on my list of possibilities because I had completely forgot about it because this song is so damn hard to find. It's like the only place I can find it for streaming is Spotify. I can't find it on iTunes, or it's such a pain in the ass to find. But it's a really great, catchy, laid back song that's just, it comes in with this kind of banjo-y run.
Wait, did you say you can't find it on Spotify?
No, you can. That's
you
the only
can.
place.
Oh,
That's the only
okay.
place I can really find.
I was gonna
it
say,
to
yeah, I was
stream.
listening to it. Yeah.
Yep. But like, like I was saying, it, starts out with this kind of banjo-y thing, but then more layers and textures just kind of keep getting added. But it does just that beat and the vocal melody. It just kind of hits a chord with me.
Yeah. It wasn't what I expected based on the song title, Zombies on Parade.
Oh, were you expecting something harder or?
I don't know. Or something a little more strange or out there. But yeah.
Well, Greg Camp was the original guitar player in Smash Mouth. Don't let that turn you off. It doesn't sound like Smash Mouth.
I would have prejudged it if I'd known that ahead of time.
Exactly.
And I think you've brought that up. I think you've told me.
I think I have.
Yeah.
I've mentioned this guy before. This Defector album, it is really good. But Zombies on Parade, this is such a great song.
Yeah, you're right. It's catchy. It is. All right.
Bring us to your number 2.
My number 2. Well, if you hung out with me in 1993 like you did, Matt, I probably talked your ear off about the Smashing Pumpkins.
Yes, you did.
Yes, I did. I was very obsessed with the Smashing Pumpkins in 1993. I was thinking the other day when we were talking about Bob Dylan from the 1975 Blood on the Tracks album, how Billy Corgan was kind of the Dylan of our time. I mean, a lot of people talk about how they don't understand Eddie Vedder, but at least Eddie Vedder has a tonal quality to him that there are people kind of enjoy and hearing and singing. Yeah. Whereas Billy Corgan has that type of voice that to some people just sounds like nails going down a chalkboard. And
it's kind of nasally and thin. Yeah,
I can accept that. But for me, the song is Geek USA. And it's all about the drums for this song. It does have a kick-ass guitar solo, but this is one of my all-time favorite drumming performances. Go YouTube Geek USA on drums, and you'll see all kinds of drummers out there covering it. And it's just such a joy to watch. There's even a YouTube video of Jimmy Chamberlain on stage just with a drum set, where he sits and he plays Smashing Pumpkins songs for an audience. And
that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Did you see that?
Yes, you sent me a link.
Oh, I did, didn't I?
Yeah.
It's fun to watch. But it is. He just, is probably one of my top 3 to 5 all-time favorite drummers. And I know I talked about Stephen Perkins as being one of the best drummers from the 90s, but if I were going to sit in a mirror and argue with myself over who was better, it would be Jimmy Chamberlain all the way, all the time. He drives the sound in this song, in my opinion, but then he gives the lane for the guitar riffs to just burn through. And I know I've talked about them a lot, but this song still makes my adrenaline rise when I hear it. It's possibly my favorite Pumpkins song.
And you're right. The drums are this song. And I think I mentioned when I brought in Soundgarden song, Jesus Christ Pose, how the drums kind of are mimicking the cadence on the guitars. Yep. And that's what he's doing, except he's doing it at the beginning. He's making everything else. No, you're doing this.
Yeah. Because
the drums come in with this presence that just kind of takes over. And you're right. He does exactly what you said and what he should do. Yep. There's that point in the song where it's like, okay, it's not my time. But then when it is his time, watch out. He's going to come back and kick you in the head.
And you're right about how that snare, when it starts rolling in, how it leads that guitar in. And even the kick drum, though, drives the bass forward, too.
Yes.
Yeah. It's just.
Yep. You got the toms and everything. And he hits the cymbals right at the right accent times. They're not just going all over the place in a mess.
Yeah. If this was a marching band song, you'd have the drums right at the front.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be a good song for a marching.
All right, Bill Prue, if you're listening up.
Yeah.
All right. So
Falcons.
that's my number 2. So onto your number 3, and go Falcons. You're right. Do you know they're undefeated this season in football?
Yeah. 4-0. That's awesome. Woohoo.
All right, here we go.
So my number 3 is going to be Steam-Powered Giraffe and Honeybee.
Of course, it's going to be Steam-Powered Giraffe.
What did you say? What did you say when you first saw this? Did you say, what the fuck?
What children's album am I going to go listen to now? Steam-Powered Giraffe.
In my arrow.
Yeah. Honeybee.
Yeah, Honeybee. And you're right. This is an oddball group. They're into steampunk and mimery. They have costumes and they face paint to be automatons, not robots, automatons. And you'll hear it in the song where they make these little sound effects like they are machines. But don't let that scare you off, because this is a really great, tender song with some of the most incredible vocal moments you'll hear. They have this 3-part harmony that it sounds kind of old-timey.
Mm-hmm.
The note choices and the inflection that they give on their voice.
Mm-hmm.
And the end of the line, waited for you all my life. It's so delicate and breathy. That control, try to do that. The control you have to have at that pitch and how low the projection is, to have that control, there is a talent that it takes to do that.
Yeah.
And the parts of the song where Isabella goes from full voice to falsetto, it's seamless.
Yeah.
It's so amazing.
There's absolutely no doubt. As soon as I started listening to this song, I was like, oh yeah, this is Matt. Your love for harmonies and rich vocals is right here in this tune. And you're right. There's a playful barbershop, I can't say quartet because it's 3-part harmonies, but ragtime feel that's just really enjoyable. So it's a great choice. And
don't let that scare you off. It's not banjo. It's not Homer in the whatever on the rooftop singing barbershop quartet. It's a really good song that builds toward the end. But it's catchy.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Fun stuff.
Yeah. All right. So your number 3, what you got?
My number 3, well, I'm going to go back to 1980, which we keep going back to 1980 like it's the well to dig out of,
because it's awesome.
Yeah. 1980 surprises me. But the song I'm going to pick is Fantastic Voyage from Lakeside.
Awesome.
Yeah. After finding this gem, I was blown away by it. I was chatting with you one night and I was like, because I found this when we were searching through 1980. And then, like a lot of songs, I forgot about it. And I picked other songs or, picked songs that were probably, more popular at the time because I wanted to pick more familiar songs for the audience. Mm-hmm. And I just decided for this show, I have to go back to this. I sent you a link the first night I rediscovered it. And about 12 minutes later, you messaged me back saying that you were on your 3rd consecutive listen of it.
Yeah, because it's awesome. And it's got one of those hook melodies that is timeless. And when you hear it, as just being incredible. And I remember hearing it for the first time when you sent it to me, and I'm like, all right, this is okay. It's a little funky R&B. And then the hook came in. I'm like, oh shit. Yeah, here we go. Yeah. This is that song. Yeah.
No. So Lakeside.
I love those
Voyage.
Shit moments.
Those moments are the best. Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
All right. So that's my number 3. Nice and simple. Yep. You get number 4.
My number 4 will be Prince and Controversy from 1981. I had a hard time only choosing one Prince song since probably the next cleanup episode I'll have another Prince song from his 1980 album Dirty Mind, but that's for another show. So Prince, this is his awesome brand of funky pop R&B. It's catchy, and if you've listened to Bruno Mars, especially Uptown Funk, and the album Awaken My Love, Childish Gambino, you are going to hear some major Prince influences.
Yeah.
There are parts, I wish I can remember the name of the song. It's a different song off the Controversy album where you're like, oh, that's kind of where they get that hot pants line from Uptown Funk, where you're like, oh shit, yeah, this, and it's got that drum beat. I'm like, shit, this is Uptown Funk.
It just falls right into it. You're right. Yeah,
exactly. Because Prince is awesome. The song is great.
I think it's funny that you talk about something from Dirty Mind because you were on my Maroon 5 show and one of your albums to take to the desert island was Purple Rain. So people be prepared. There's going to be some stuff coming around, but Dirty Mind though, we covered from one of the years already. So that's why, that would be there.
I didn't choose a song though, but on the next cleanup, mark my words, it'll be there.
All right. So
all right.
My number 4.
Prince Controversy was mine. What's yours?
Mine is going to be once again from 1980. I'm going to go back again. I can't believe I forgot to talk about the Blues Brothers, especially since we were talking about events and things going on in 1980.
Yeah.
And to skip that film, it was a huge part of my life growing up musically. I love the song Think by Blues Brothers and Aretha Franklin.
Oh, yeah. I'll take 4 fried chickens and a Coke.
Oh, yeah. What a great movie with great music. Ray Charles and Shake Your Tail Feather is also cool, but this song steals the movie for me. I still think Aretha's in her prime when she's in this. The backup singers, the saxophone player jumping up on the counter in the cafe, doing his part. If I'm sitting on the couch and I'm just watching TV randomly, flicking through the channels, and I come across this movie and I know this scene is going to come up, I leave it on. It's just as much fun, though, to go put on headphones and listen to as it is to watch.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Headphones is always the way to go anyways.
Yeah.
But yeah, you get that visual of Aretha Franklin telling her man, oh, you're not going to do that.
Oh, and
then he just comes around and says, no, I'm going to do that.
It is funny because she really lays it out to him. And at the end, he just takes his towel off and he's like, all right, see you later.
Yeah. Like it meant nothing.
So I had to bring the Blues Brothers to the playlist.
I won't argue with you.
All right. So that's my number 4. We are on to your last choice.
Yes. And I will go with White Denim and Had to Know Personal from 2016.
Yeah.
I had brought Ha 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 Yeah from this same album. And I had this really hard debate with myself of which song to pick. And so I said, well, I'll flip a coin, and whatever I don't add now, I'll put it on the cleanup episode. Because this is the first song on the album, and then Ha 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 Yeah is the second. And it's such an incredible 1-2 punch to begin an album with that it's like the knockout blow where I'm hooked immediately. And I'm like, yeah, this is so awesome. And there's so many different guitar parts going on. And they do something great, which is maybe a lost art, where especially if you're listening with headphones, it's like, oh, this guitar is over here in my left side. This one's over in my right. And it's just like these individual little parts that always kind of come in. They go out on top of the main guitar riff that's going on.
Yeah, I definitely noticed that real separation of instruments when I listened to it.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it's something that sounds really cool and fresh for 2016, since it didn't sound like everything was redlined. It's really nice. So, when I went and looked this up and I saw that, you had picked this song ahead of time, I saw it in the quotations personal, and I took a deep breath and thought, oh, Matt's going to have a deep story for us about why this song is on the list. And then, and then when I looked it up and I saw it there on Spotify, I was like, oh, wait a minute. It's called Had to Know, in parentheses, personal.
And it's the number 2, not spelled out 2.
No, it is the number 2.
Yeah, it is the number 2.
And it was cool to see because I immediately recognized the Ha 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 song. And I was like, oh, yeah, Matt's definitely a fan of this band. And it is. You're right. It's a good 1-2 punch right out of the gate. And this song's got a great rock riff to it. And there's even a little bit of what I would almost call an Allman Brothers breakdown in it. That's really cool. Yeah.
And I think that leads to a key change.
It does. And that's why I hear that.
And that's what's great, because there's nothing that pulls me out of a song than a sloppy key change.
And it doesn't sound like the Allman Brothers, just so people know. This band sounds nothing like them. Yeah, it just has that kind of musical approach to a guitar riff breaking down and then a key change. It's great. So fantastic choice. And I'm glad once again we have songs on the playlist that are back to back off the same album, but I'm happy to have White Denim there. So good stuff.
Cool. All right. You're going to finish us off. So what's your number 5?
I'm also going to 2016, believe it or not. This was the beginning of my venture into women's music. I've talked about how, was really kind of bored and I was feeling lethargic about music and not really finding anything special or new. And then my friend Corin posted the video for this artist called Jane. The song is called Come, on her Facebook page one day. And I randomly checked it out. And I was like, well, this is really cool. And I wound up digging through most of her discography after that. I became a little obsessed to the point that I fatigued her. So I haven't really gone back much since I think that was maybe around 2018, 2019 that happened to me. But when I saw this album was out in 2016 and I was looking back before this show, I had to bring her to the playlist because she inspired me to think to myself that I've always been a dude rock guy or pop guy or whatever. What if I've been missing more great music from women artists that I don't have the instinctive attraction to?
Mm-hmm.
So I credit Jane for encouraging me or inspiring me to dig deeper. And I came away with finding a whole new appreciation for the contributions of women's music.
Yeah. And I didn't know what I was getting into when I listened to this. What is it, Afro pop?
You know, it is. She's French. So she's from.
Yes, but she kind of spent some of her formative years in Africa.
She did. And
from what I was reading.
Yep.
So that's where you can, I mean, and the ages that she was there, you're right for just having influences plugged into your brain.
And her producer's also African. So, okay. Or her manager producer's also African. So, you know, I forget what his name is, but he kind of discovered her, and I'm sure he promotes that kind of Afropop sound that she's out there performing. Yeah, it's really kind of cool, unique music that's just a little bit different from everything else you're going to listen to, but not by any means difficult to listen to. It's just nice. It's good fun.
Cool.
And that's it.
I like it.
Yeah.
So that wraps up our second cleanup episode.
Yes,
Holy
it does.
Shit, what did we miss? That's what we're fucking calling it, I think, this time.
Well, the next episode will be like, what did we miss the last time? We missed something the first time and the second time.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll catch up with everything that we've missed.
Yes.
Or we won't care as much.
Yeah. But, you know, as two lovers of music as we are, we're probably going to go back and still find stuff that.
Oh, yeah. You know, and sometimes you're kind of a slave to your whims.
Mm-hmm. Hey, you're lucky for the 1988 episode. I never even brought up New Kids on the Block. We had Hangin' Tough.
Yeah, I know.
We had the right stuff.
I know.
And that never even
had. This is the time to bring it up. It's a cleanup.
Dude, Hangin' Tough is a great song. I loved Hangin' Tough. I did. I wasn't a huge fan of the New Kids on the Block, but if you want to catch me on the odd day singing along to that in the shower when nobody's looking.
Yeah.
That's
having a shower beer.
Having a shower beer. That's the embarrassed Jim to let his cool friends know. I probably am not going to go out on the street and start strutting my stuff to that song.
Yeah, probably
everybody,
not.
If you want to take a chance.
Oh my, did something do the New Kid dance?
Yeah, you don't need to know. That's
something.
Good. You're lucky.
No.
You're lucky.
I'm still one of the cool kids. I don't know, right?
You're eventually you're gonna grow a mullet and beat me up for dancing to that.
I'm gonna fly to Scotland and kick your ass. Okay, so let's wrap this up. So Jim, I think it is your turn to choose. And where are we going next?
We're going to go back to the 90s. We're going to start there. So we're going to go to a comfort zone instead of going right into the 2000s, which I'm sure.
Wait, the 90s. Yes. Hold on. Yes. We just got done ranting.
No. We're going to go to 1995.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why is there more New Kids on the Block?
No, there's probably no New Kids on the Block in 1995. This is probably where grunge and pop music in a way, or popular rock music converged before it became what we talked about in 1997. So, you know, there's a lot of music that I was listening to in 1995. And when we get into that episode, I'll explain more about why I chose that year.
Awesome. Can't wait to hear it.
The cliffhanger.
Can't wait to hear it.
Oh.
I feel like just at the beginning, when I feel like you were kind of baiting me to go all in on Max Martin, I feel like you're baiting me to have a coronary or something in 95.
No, I think we'll enjoy talking about the music from 1995 together. I think
I'm pretty sure
we'll meet in the same place quite a bit. So
yeah, we usually do. All right. So everybody, we want to thank you for tuning in to the Jam Yearbook. I am Matt, and that is
I'm Jim.
All right. Well, thank you for listening. Thank you for taking part in the polls on the Facebook page. Don't hesitate to go on there and
check out our TikTok. Hashtag Jam Yearbook. Hashtag the Jam Yearbook, or at the Jam Yearbook, or however that works. I'm an old guy. I'm still figuring it out too.
Yeah, we're old. Everything is the something. You know, go to the Facebook. All right. So we will say goodbye and we will see you here next time for 1995.
Yes. Peace, love, and podcast.